These are very quick dyeing instructions for the dyeing kit from Camaj Fiber Arts using the Wilton Gel Frosting coloring. You have written instructions in the kit, and this I'm just going to go over very quickly some things that you might need to know that you might not glean from the written instructions. One of the very first things I do when I'm dyeing, now listen, you can dye in your kitchen with food grade dyes, but not really with acid dyes, but we're just talking about food grade dyes in this video. Cover all your work surfaces with plastic wrap, something like saran wrap, because even though it's food grade dyes, it can stain the surfaces that you're going to dye on, and trust me, you're going to get dye somewhere, right? Then you're going to cover the plastic wrap with paper towels or maybe some sort of other paper to absorb the dye, and then the plastic keeps it from getting on your countertop. Per the instructions, you're going to need 1 teaspoon of gel dye for 2 cups of water. You can use a little knife to get the gel out of the container. Pour the hot water over the gel into the jar and add 2 cups of hot water. You want to kind of swirl it around to dissolve the dye. Now you're going to add the zip tie. Make sure this is very loose so the dye can get under the zip tie. Also, all those ties that are around the yarn, do not take them off until you are done dyeing your yarn, because this is what keeps them from getting tangled. When dyeing yarn, you need to pre-soak it. I put some soap in my pre-soak water because sometimes there's a spinning oil left on the yarn, or maybe some dirt that might impede the dye from sticking to the fiber. I like to use a little Kookaburra wash. You can even use a little Dawn at this step. I wouldn't use Dawn on dyed yarn, but you can if you're going to pre-soak. It also breaks the tension of the water, and the yarn sort of gets down in there and gets soaked up. Okay, so you're going to soak this for at least 30 minutes. If you do it overnight, no big deal, but it needs to be pre-soaked before you dye it. The yarn is done soaking, and we're going to gently rinse it out, and you'll see why we rinse it out in the instructions in the kit. Okay, now we're going to gently take out the water, the excess water, and this is ready for the dye pot. Our dye is measured out, and we put it in the pot. And since it's a food grade dye, I can use any utensil I would use for cooking food. And now I'm going to add the yarn. Look at that pretty color. That's so pretty. You may want to put your gloves on so you can sort of get your hands in there. Let me go get my gloves, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my gloves. That way I can get my hands in there and sort of push the yarn around. And you want to move it just a little bit and very gently, just to get an even dye on the yarn. Now I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to place my thermometer in the pot. Then I'm going to turn the heat up to, I usually do medium, and then I'm going to watch the temperature. You want to get that temperature up to the temperature that's in the instructions. Here is the first pot of yarn. This is the broken color. It is 100% exhausted, completely cured. This turned out really pretty. This one is the solid color yarn, completely exhausted, 100% cured. You can see the water is completely clear. Next, you need to wash it per the instructions. And I put a little glug of soap and some water, and then I put the yarn in because we need to get it back back to neutral because it's been in an acidic solution for a long time. So we need to get it back to neutral. Then I sort of dunk it down just gently and let it sit there for a little while. If your yarn is going to bleed, this is when it's going to bleed. But check this out. Look at that water. 100% clear. Then after a light washing, I will do a final rinse. You might want to even put a little vinegar in that. After the final rinse, squeeze out excess water very gently, roll it up in a towel, get even more water out, hang it to dry but not in the sun, and do not weight the yarn, which means don't put any weight on the yarn while it's wet, because yarn is weak or wool is weak when it's wet. All right, on the left side is the broken color, the right is the solid. In your kit, you will get 2 skeins of yarn and plenty of dye to dye the broken color and the solid color. If you would like to get a dyeing kit and learn how to dye your very own yarn, head on over to Camaj Fiber Arts. Or if you want to learn how to dye with more professional dyes, acid dyes, you can take my online dyeing course at the Camaj School of Fiber Arts. The link is below. All right, thanks for watching and please subscribe.